Chapter 3 The White Rose A cloud of steam arose as the girl poured another kettle of boiling water into the bath-water. Conan, wedged into the wooden tub and unable to evade the scalding water, cursed with his mouth full of wine and swatted at the wench with the chicken carcass he held in his other hand. The girl, Conan had already forgotten her name, laughed coarsely and knelt to scrub his back with a sponge and the sulphurous-smelling soap that Santidio swore would kill the prison lice. Her thin cotton shift, wet and clinging to her body, outlined a substantial physique. Conan, a tankard of wine in one fist and a carcass of half-cooked chicken in the other, suffered her ministrations with aplomb. One of Mordermy's men had struck off the Cimmerian chains. Now in an oak-panelled chamber within Mordermy's lair, Conan and Santidio tried to wash away the accumulated filth of their prison ordeal. Grinning horrors attended them, and the steam-filled room took on the aspect of a public baths. Conan, impatient to fill his rumbling belly, saw no reason to delay his meal any further. Santidio in the tub beside him seemed neither hungry nor thirsty. Scrubbing briskly at his bony sides, he maintained an incessant stream of chatter detailing the outrages of his arrest and imprisonment. Evidently there had never been a trial, and of the struggle beneath the gallows. Mordermy listened politely, occasionally interjecting a question. Sandukazi, amusement in her eyes, paid more attention to Conan. Seen beside her brother, the sibling resemblance was apparent. There were facial similarities in the angular chin, high-bridged nose, sensuous mouth, and glowing, almost overlarge eyes. Sandukazi had the characteristic dark complexion of Zingarans, as well as heavy coils of lustrous black hair haphazardly bound in a red scarf. She was as tall as her brother, slender and long-limbed. A well-developed figure was set off by her off-the-shoulder blouse of unbleached muslin, tight leather bodice, and wide calf-length skirt of embroidered material. She was close enough to Santidio's age that Conan could not decide which was the elder. Mordermy was younger than Conan had expected, probably not more than a few years his senior. He was a head shorter than the hulking Cimmerian as well, despite the high-heeled boots he chose to wear. The Prince of Cordava's thieves had the reputation of being a dangerous opponent either in single combat or in a brawl, and Conan recognized the pantherish deadliness in the man's compactly muscled frame. He had a square jaw and a nose that seemed to have been broken at least once. His face was alert, his dark eyes were piercing when he looked at you, veiled when you looked back. Again, the dark Zingaran complexion, and an oily mass of black curls that he tied out of his eyes with a scarf that matched Sandukazi's. Conan considered the thin mustache and gold earrings a bit foppish, but then the fashions of Zingara were not to a Cimmerian's taste. In trunk hose and filigreed doublet of dark velvet, Mordermy might well be a prince of the blood instead of prince of rogues. There was nothing effeminate about the double-edged rapier and quill and dagger belted at Mordermy's trim waist. Conan drained the tankard, and his buxom attendant made haste to refill it. The chicken was tough and poorly cooked, but Conan was too hungry to care. Luxuriating in the warm water, he gnawed with gusto at the stringy carcass, spitting the larger bones onto the floor. There were deep gouges along his wrists and ankles where the shackles had been struck away. Conan scowled at the marks and made a mental note to keep the sores covered until well healed. They were the telltale brand of a fugitive. Mordermy's question indicated he had followed the Cimmerian's eyes and train of thought. "What will you do now, Conan?" "Get out of Cordava," Conan answered. Beyond that much he hadn't really given the matter thought. "Take passage on some ship, or maybe slip past the walls and into the hinterland, make for Aquilonia or Argos." Mordermy shook his head. "No good, that's what they'll figure. They'll be watching the waterfront, double guards along the city wall, and word will be speeding to the frontier. After that exercise on the dancing floor, Rimonendo will order Korst to recapture you two at any cost. Korst is no fool, and you're about as inconspicuous as a Venetian elephant in a dove's cage." "All the more reason to get clear of Zingara," Conan agreed. "The Pictish wilderness lies close beyond the Black River here, and chances are that Korst won't be watching that frontier too closely." "With good reason," Mordormi agreed. No white man has ever crossed the Pictish wilderness. Do you want to tell a Cimmerian about Picts? Conan wondered caustically. Mordormi grinned at the jibe. Why not stay here? You're as safe in the pit as anywhere. Mitra, half of my men would be dancers if they strolled past the magistrate's hall. Corse knows their faces and knows where to find them, but he dares not seek them in the pit. After today, Sentidio suggested, we've ruined Rimonendo's digestion, be certain. I've often wondered whether he might move in force against the pit if there were sufficient provocation. Well then, let him move against us. They can seal off 1,000 exits. We can leave by 1,000 more. Let them search through 1,000 cellars. We'll laugh at them from 1,000 undreamed of coverts. If I know Korst, he'll hire assassins to seek you out and consider his responsibility in the matter to be delegated. Assassins we can deal with. Are you worried about assassins, Conan? Conan bit the head off the chicken carcass, laughed over a mouthful of crunching bones. Mordormi grunted. Well, this is it, then. Stay here while Rimonendo's fools wait for you to escape. I know men. I saw what you can do there on the scaffold, and any man who could kill Rineva in a fair duel has more to him than just guts and muscle. I can use you, Conan. My men and I live pretty well, as you can see, and I see to it that every man gets his fair share. You'll make a damn sight better pay with me than as a mercenary, and the risks are about the same. Give things a little time to cool off. Then, if you want to show your heels to Cordava, you can do it loaded down with gold. Softly, Mordormi, Sentidio protested. He was vigorously toweling his lean frame. You forget that Conan is not just another of your common thugs. He's a man of natural principles and a political prisoner, as was I. A barbarian mercenary, Mordormi started to protest, and a man of native honor may entertain understandable scruples at the invitation to join a gang of thieves. Sentidio shouted him down. Conan, you should know that our motives are the highest. We are not bandits. We are altruists. Sentidio, I don't think Conan. Enough, Mordormi. Your rescue this morning, an undertaking which I will point out entailed enormous risk and not one copper of profit for you, clearly proves that you are one of us. Conan, you have, of course, heard of the White Rose. Conan, his mouth full of wine and chicken breast, had been looking towards Sandukazi for guidance. Her full lips sucked at an orange, but her eyes smiled amusement. Conan worked to swallow. Was the White Rose that dive where... Sentidio liked the sound of his own words too much to require a reply. As you know, the White Rose is the revolutionary army dedicated to the overthrow of King Rimonendo and his corrupt court, and to the establishment of a free republic of the Zingaran people. Doubtless you will have seen our broadsides. We circulate them faster than Rimonendo's stooges can tear them down. Or you may have read our leaflets, perhaps even my own most recent pamphlet, the one that led to our acquaintance under the gallows. Conan nodded politely, licking grease from his fingers. The chicken had taken enough of the edge from his appetite to restore his equanimity. He did vaguely recall some sort of furor in the barracks over the discovery of certain treasonous documents, some discussion of a secret society Rimonendo wanted rooted out. Such was a matter for the city guard to bother about, but not for Zingara's mercenary company, and Conan found political arguments as dull and fruitless as that other conversational exercise that so obsessed learned fools, religious discussions. Republic! Conan struggled with the unfamiliar Zingaran term. What do you mean? I'm not sure that your native tongue includes the concept, Sentidio said airily. It is a creation of the most modern political thought. I don't know what you might call it, a commonwealth perhaps, where people choose their rulers instead of accepting those the gods place over them. The idea is somewhat akin to the practices of certain primitive tribes who elect their chiefs. Sentidio caught himself quickly. Primitive, meaning, in other words, certain barbarian peoples. He tried to recall in what manner the Cimmerians governed themselves. You said the White Rose was an army, Conan prompted. Where are your soldiers? The people of Zingara are our soldiers, Santidio informed him, waving his arms to include the world. For our cause is the cause of all men who seek freedom from the tyranny of a corrupt and wilful despot. Conan had been about to ask where their headquarters were, but now thought better of it. And your officers, who are they? We have no officers, at least not in the sense you mean, Santidio hedged. We have leaders, of course, but our leaders are men chosen by people from our own ranks, not petty tyrants who secure their high position through wealth and birth. And who is the leader of the White Rose? Conan persisted. Well, we have no leader, at least no one leader per se, that is, no one person to whom all others are subservient, but this is not to say that we are leaderless, of course. Conan nodded, tankard poised halfway to his mouth. There are some, I suppose, Santidio went on, who would say that I am the leader of the White Rose. Of course, we do have our factions. Any movement does. Certainly Avinti has his adherents among the conservatives, as does Carrico with his muddy ideas on communal property, and there are others prominent in our movement who have a certain following. Then who makes decisions? Ah, we all do. We have discussions, form committees to study all aspects of the situation, then we vote on a course of action. The powers to command are held by all. Mordurmi burst out laughing. And if it had been left to your fellow florists, the ravens would be feasting on that glib tongue of yours, Santidio. Do you know why the White Rose did nothing to secure your release? Because the committee designated to propose a rescue plan and couldn't agree whether to storm the prison or to subvert your guards, while Avinti maintained that you were far more valuable to the movement as a martyr than as a writer of half-baked political pamphlets. That bastard of Vinti, I'll kill him, Santidio flared. But I thought Sandukazi has convinced you to throw your lot in with us. Sandukazi was persuasive, I'll grant you, but the rescue today was entirely on my own initiative. That bastard of Vinti, Santidio's face was murderous. I'll give him his chance to earn a martyr's glory. Fuming, he struggled into the fresh garments Sandukazi had brought him. One of the whores made to help him with his trunk hose, but Santidio impatiently brushed her away, hopped about the room, cursing to himself. Conan's attendant brought razor and mirror. She would have shaved him, but Conan didn't care to allow another hand to bring sharp steel that close to his throat. Letting her hold the mirror, he scraped at the growth of beard. Santidio had no more than trimmed his own prison growth to its customary length. The situation is brief, Conan, Santidio continued as he busied himself tying his points, is that Mordurmi is in sympathy with the goals and principles of the White Rose, even though the conceited ass considers us little more than idealists and visionaries. You and your friends tell the poor that the wealth of Rimanendo's court rightfully belongs to them, Mordurmi said caustically. I take those riches from Rimanendo's nobles and give them to the oppressed. After exacting a profit, I have my expenses to contend with. Santidio, dear, you are the one who speaks of altruism. Mordurmi, Santidio whirled to fix the outlaw with an accusing finger. Beneath that cynical front beats a heart of stone. Kazi, where is my sword? Sandukazi spoke to one of the whores. The girl disappeared, returned shortly with a rapier in a slightly mildewed scabbard. Santidio slid the double-edged blade from its scabbard, eyed it critically for a moment, and made a few passes. Conan watched his movements with interest. Santidio was quick with words. His talent was not confined to verbal fencing. Avinti, it is time for a dialogue, Santidio murmured, returning the blade to its sheath and belting it to his waist. Conan, are you an oyster that you will soak in your shell all day? Bring me my clothes, Conan suggested. They crawled away, Sandukazi laughed. The lice claimed them in the name of King Rimanendo and carried them back to the prison for dessert. The girls are finding clothes to fit you. Conan handed the razor back to his doxy, washed the soap from his face. The water, he decided, had reached that point at which it was as likely to deposit dirt on his skin as to wash it off, but at least he'd cleansed the stench of prison from his flesh. He climbed out of the tub, wrestled with the whore for the towel. Sandokazi watched him with ironic amusement, chewing at her orange. By the time he had dried himself, they had brought fresh garments, clean if not particularly new. Conan worked his legs into a pair of leather trousers tight against his damp skin and drew a loose-sleeved shirt of burgundy stuff over his head. His boots had been cleaned and hastily mended where the iron cuffs had gouged. There was a sleeveless houppelande, its brocade somewhat frayed, that made a snug fit across his chest. Conan suspected its original wearer had been a man of stout proportions, and a slouch-brimmed hat that Conan tried and discarded. "Not bad," Santidio judged. "You aren't going to be mistaken for one of Rimanendo's counts, but then again you'll pass in a crowd." Sandokazi laughed cynically. "I'm sure we can obtain a more suitable costume given time," Mordurmi said smoothly. "Something a trifle more in the mode, perhaps. After all, the guard will be looking for a ragged barbarian." "I'll settle for a good sword," Conan told him. "That much is easily done. Our arsenal is better stocked than our haberdashery here." Mordurmi smiled. "A fine rapier, perhaps? We have several to choose from as to edge and blade length. Or do you prefer the hand-and-a-half sword with which you dispatched Captain Rinava?" "A broadsword would suit me better," Conan hazarded. He would have preferred the two-handed, double-edged straight sword, but doubted that he would find one readily here. "Of course," Mardurmi remarked. "You'll want to choose your own from those we have, so I'll take you to our storeroom. My men and I steal only the very finest for ourselves." "I'll pay you for all this when I can," Conan remembered. "Pay us?" Mordurmi clapped his shoulder. "Conan, I told you it's all stolen. Besides, without your intercession this morning, my rescue attempt would have been in just past the nick of time. We but distribute to the people the products of their own labor wrongfully appropriated from them by an unjust economic structure." "Oh, shut up, Santidio," Mordurmi groaned. "Conan isn't joining us to hear your prattle." "But you are joining us?" Santidio asked him. Conan shrugged. "I joined Rimanendo's army in good faith. His government betrayed me. I killed an overbearing bully in a fight he demanded. General Korst would have me hanged. I don't quite understand your fine talk and theory, O Santidio, but I owe a grudge against Rimanendo and his tools, and I owe Mordurmi for a sword."